At 8:22 on a Thursday night, the National Weather Service in Norman, Oklahoma, issued a tornado emergency. Not a tornado watch, not a tornado warning, a tornado emergency, the rarest and most severe alert in the American warning system, reserved for only the most violent, confirmed life-threatening tornadoes, issued for the city of Enid, Oklahoma, as a 500-yard wide, 170-mile-per-hour wedge tornado crossed directly over a United States Air Force Base. Pilots ran for their lives. The base shut down. And in the Gray Ridge neighborhood on the southern edge of a city of 52,000 people, homes did not lose their roofs. They lost their walls, their foundations, their existence. The Enid tornado of April 23, 2026, rated EF4, was the strongest tornado to strike the United States since an EF5 killed people in North Dakota in June 2025. And it was only day one of a 6-day outbreak that is still not finished. Stay with me. Because the Enid tornado, as violent as it was, is not actually the most alarming thing about what has happened across America over the last 6 days. The most alarming thing is where these tornadoes are going, not Oklahoma, not Kansas, not the traditional corridor that Americans have accepted as the cost of living in the center of the country. These storms are going north. They're going east. And the place they are hitting hardest is a place that has never been told to expect this, has never built for it, has never drilled for it, and has 3 times the population density of the region where Americans have historically known to be afraid. We are going through all of it. Stay with me. To understand what happened in Enid on the night of April 23rd, you need to understand what an EF4 tornado does to a building. The Enid tornado developed on the evening of April 23rd, 2026, as part of a regional severe weather outbreak affecting portions of the central United States, associated with a strongly unstable air mass across northern Oklahoma, characterized by rich, low-level moisture, steep lapse rates, and strong vertical wind shear conducive to supercell thunderstorm development. Wikipedia. The tornado maintained EF4 intensity as it continued northeastward, obliterating entire groves of trees, snapping power poles, and depositing dumpsters into a gully as it crossed South 16th Street. It struck a farmstead as it crossed East Southgate Road, heavily damaging or destroying multiple outbuildings and metal building systems, including a newly constructed machine shed and a well-built pole barn that were swept away, and tossing 2 RVs, with one of them not being found. Wikipedia. Read that again. One of the RVs was not found. A poorly anchored 2-story cinderblock farmhouse was completely swept away. A truck bed was twisted into a mangled tree. Trees were obliterated, at least one left with no limbs. Extensive ground scouring was left behind along with swirl marks in a wheat field. Wikipedia. The National Weather Service estimated winds at a maximum of 170 km/h over the twister's 5-mile-long track. A weather station at Vance Air Force Base measured a 170-meter gust during the storm. AccuWeather. This is the first EF4 in Garfield County, Oklahoma, since April 26, 1991, 35 years. Fox weather. And it crossed directly over a military installation that trains America's fighter pilots. All Vance Air Force Base personnel were accounted for, and there were no reported injuries at the base, but base leadership suspended all flight training operations, and the base remained closed until further notice as crews worked to restore power and water. AccuWeather America's Air Force grounded by a tornado it did not see coming in time to move aircraft. Here's the fact that will dominate every headline about Enid. Nobody died. Enid Mayor David Mason confirmed it. While homes have sustained significant damage, there have been no fatalities and only minor injuries sustained. AccuWeather 10 injured, 40 homes damaged or destroyed, a military base shut down, an EF4 with winds of 175 kilometers crossing a city of 52,000. And no one died. That outcome is not normal. That outcome is the result of a warning system that worked almost perfectly. A tornado emergency issued at 8:22 p.m., giving residents enough minutes to reach shelter before the circulation arrived. The National Weather Service in Norman, Oklahoma, performed at the highest level possible. Here is what that miracle hides. For Enid specifically, the storm exposed a gap that affects many mid-sized American cities. The window between when a tornado emergency is issued and when residents can safely reach shelter is measured in minutes, the tech marketer minutes, in darkness. At 8:22 at night, Enid survived because its residents moved fast enough, because the warning system gave them enough time, because the storm hit a southern neighborhood and not the densely packed downtown core, because 175-mile-per-hour winds crossed the Gray Ridge area and not a school, not a hospital, not a neighborhood where mobile homes are the primary housing stock. Change any one of those variables and Enid's story is not a miracle. It is a mass casualty event. And the outbreak did not stop in Enid. This is what 6 consecutive days of severe weather looks like when the atmosphere does not reset. Day 1, April 23rd. A wall of supercell thunderstorms erupts across north-central Oklahoma. The Enid EF4 touches down. 10 people injured, 40 homes destroyed. Vance Air Force Base goes dark. AccuWeather Day 3, April 25th. The outbreak expands into Texas. A high-end EF2 tornado tracks through Runaway Bay, Texas, completely destroying one home and heavily damaging multiple others. One person is killed. Numerous others are injured. 690 people are left without power. 20 families are displaced. A 69-year-old woman near Carter, Texas, is killed when an intense rear flank downdraft surge rolls her mobile home multiple times and destroys it. Wikipedia Day 5, April 27th. A particularly dangerous situation tornado. Warning is issued for Stone County, Arkansas, the most severe tornado warning designation, for a confirmed destructive tornado that stays on the ground for approximately 10 miles, lofting debris high into the air. CNN Day 6, April 28th. A tornado tears through the city of Mineral Wells, Texas. Confirmed structural damage. First responders actively on scene. The 6th consecutive day of violent storms across the central United States. CNN overall, 56 tornadoes have been confirmed during the outbreak sequence. Wikipedia, 56 tornadoes in 6 days, from one continuous atmospheric system that has sat over the central United States like a loaded weapon, recharging overnight and firing again the next afternoon. And here is the detail that should stop you cold. This outbreak did not appear in isolation. It landed on top of a tornado season that had already, by April 23rd, become historic. 2026 is front-loaded. The worst damage so far has not come in May. It has not come in June. It has come in March and April. Months that in most historical years are the buildup, not the peak. Weather on this day, March 5th through 7th. A separate outbreak, weeks before the Enid EF4, an EF3 near Union City, Michigan, killing 3 people and injuring 12. An EF3 near Beggs, Oklahoma, killing 2 more. An EF2 near Fairview, Oklahoma, killing a mother and her 13-year-old daughter when their vehicle was thrown off U.S. Highway 60. Wikipedia, March 10th. An EF5 with winds over 200 mph carves a 14.6-mile track through Wells County, Indiana. The second EF5 in the United States since 2013. The first in Enderlin, North Dakota in June 2025 had ended a 12-year EF5 drought. The second came less than a year later. Weather. On this day, 2 EF5 tornadoes in less than 12 months. The last time that happened before 2025 was 2011. The year Joplin, Missouri lost 161 people in a single afternoon. And where did that EF5 land? Not in Oklahoma, not in Kansas, in Indiana. The EF3 that followed weeks later tracked 35.6 miles from Kankakee, Illinois to Lake Village, Indiana, killing 3 people. That same storm dropped 5 to 6 inch hailstones near Kankakee, potentially a new Illinois state record. Weather on this day: Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. The tornado map of 2026 does not look like the tornado map your parents were shown in school. Here is what is not making headlines. The National Weather Service office that has issued the most tornado warnings of any forecast office in the entire United States this year is not in Norman, Oklahoma. It is not in Wichita, Kansas. It is not anywhere in traditional Tornado Alley. Tornado activity has been shifting eastward into what scientists now call Dixie Alley, the Alabama and Tennessee, and further north into what is increasingly being called the Great Lakes Corridor. Weather. On this day, the geographic center of America's tornado danger has moved, and the place it has moved to is 3 times more densely populated than the place it moved from. Population density in Dixie Alley is roughly 3 times higher than traditional Tornado Alley, and these storms often strike at night, making them deadlier. 3 times more people. Storms that hit at 2 a.m. when residents are asleep and cannot see the sky. No tornado safe rooms. The reinforced concrete shelters that Oklahoma and Kansas homeowners have been building into their properties for decades, because Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan residents have not historically needed them. No culture of the warning, no instinct for the sky, no community muscle memory for what to do when the siren sounds. A 12-year-old boy died in Michigan because a tornado hit his neighborhood. Michigan? A state where parents do not have tornado drills in the same visceral, practiced way that Oklahoma parents do. Where schools do not shelter in place for tornadoes with the same institutional urgency. Where the mental model of what a tornado warning means has not been shaped by generations of living directly underneath the worst tornado climatology on Earth. The EF3 near Union City was the strongest tornado to strike the state of Michigan in nearly 50 years, since an F4 struck the city of Kalamazoo on April 2, 1977, directly 50 years. between EF4 or stronger tornadoes in Michigan, and the gap just closed. Now let the numbers speak without commentary. A 15% risk of tornadoes was outlined for parts of Missouri and Illinois on April 27th, with a PDS tornado watch covering northeast Arkansas, western Tennessee, southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, southwest Indiana, and western Kentucky. Wikipedia. That is 6 states under a particularly dangerous situation designation simultaneously. The PDS designation is used specifically when the Storm Prediction Center believes EF2 or stronger, potentially EF4 or EF5. Tornadoes are likely. Not possible. Likely. Worldwide, 15 tornado-related deaths have been confirmed in 2026, 12 of them in the United States. Weather on this day. 12th American tornado deaths through late April, in a year that has produced an EF5 in Indiana, an EF4 in Oklahoma, an EF3 in Michigan, 3 dead in Beggs, 2 dead in Texas, a mother and daughter dead in their car in Fairview, Oklahoma, a 12-year-old boy dead in Union City, and the climatological peak of tornado season, May and June, has not yet arrived. AccuWeather meteorologist Alex Duffus said plainly, "There may be fewer tornadoes reported compared to last year, but that does not mean this will be a quiet, severe weather season." Weather on this day. Fewer tornadoes, more violent ones, striking places that are not ready. Picture this. Somewhere in Kankakee, Illinois tonight, 60 miles south of Chicago, a family is sitting in a house with no tornado shelter. Not because they could not afford one. Because the cultural contract between Kankakee residents and the sky above them has, for generations, not included the words, "The tornado is coming this way." The contract was broken when a cyclic supercell dropped a tornado in March 2026 that stayed on the ground for 35. 6 miles from Kankakee to Lake Village, Indiana, when that same storm dropped hailstones the size of softballs, when 3 people died. And in southern Michigan tonight in Branch County in the Union Lake neighborhood, where an EF3 tornado swept homes off their foundations in early March. Families are living in structures built to code for a part of the country that was not historically in the EF3 conversation. The building codes that govern how a house is framed in Michigan are not the same as the building codes that govern how a house is framed in the Oklahoma City metropolitan area, where every residential developer knows their product will be tested by the atmosphere, where safe rooms are standard, where the insurance market, the municipal codes, and the cultural expectations have been shaped by 75 years of living directly under the most tornadic real estate on the planet. Michigan does not have that culture. Illinois does not have that culture. Indiana did not have that culture when an EF5 touched down in Wells County in March with winds exceeding 200 miles per hour. And the atmosphere is not waiting for the culture to catch up. So ask yourself 3 questions. The Enid EF4 was the first such tornado in Garfield County, Oklahoma, since 1991, a 35-year gap. In those 35 years, Enid residents continued living in a county with no recent history of EF4 damage. Some of them built homes without shelters. Some of them did not know where the nearest shelter was. The warning system worked on April 23rd, and nobody died. But the warning system gave residents minutes, not hours, not days. If that tornado had touched down 30 seconds earlier, or tracked 200 yards to the north, or arrived at 2 a.m. instead of 8:22 p.m., would the outcome have been the same? And what does it mean that the answer is no, and that the only variable separating a miracle from a massacre was the specific geometry of one tornado on one night? Fox weather. The Union City, Michigan EF3 was the earliest EF3 or stronger tornado ever recorded in the calendar year for the state of Michigan, and the strongest to occur there in nearly 50 years. Michigan has not updated its tornado preparedness infrastructure, its shelter requirements, or its community warning culture at the pace that the atmosphere appears to be shifting. If the atmosphere keeps shifting north and east, if the climatological record of 2025 and 2026 represents the new baseline and not an anomaly, who in Michigan's state legislature is currently answering the question of how to bring 50-year gap tornado preparedness up to speed before the next EF3 arrives? Wikipedia. And if the United States just experienced an EF5 in Indiana and an EF4 in Oklahoma in the same spring season, 2 of the strongest tornadoes in the country in over a decade, in a year that meteorologists described as front-loaded, with the worst violence arriving before the traditional peak of May and June. What exactly is the assumption being made about what May and June will look like? Weather. On this day, right now, the Gray Ridge neighborhood in Enid, Oklahoma, is still being searched. FEMA teams, including the acting regional administrator, are on the ground. The Red Cross shelter remains open at the Enid Chisholm Trail Expo Center at 111 West Purdue Avenue. Governor Kevin Stitt has signed an executive order declaring a disaster emergency in Garfield and Kay counties. The tech marketer Vance Air Force Base, the installation that trains the men and women who fly America's fighter jets, is still closed. The pilots who were on base when the EF4 crossed the runway are still being accounted for in ways that do not make the evening news. 2 RVs were tossed by the Enid tornado. One of them has not been found. Wikipedia. In Union City, Michigan, the foundations of homes that were swept clean in March are still visible from the road. In Wells County, Indiana, the 14th 6-mile scar left by the EF5 has not been fully rebuilt. A mother and her 13-year-old daughter are buried in Fairview, Oklahoma, killed in their car in US. Highway 60 by a tornado they never saw coming. A 12-year-old boy is buried in Michigan, the first state he ever lived in, the last state anyone expected to bury a child in an EF3 tornado in the month of March. 56 confirmed tornadoes in 6 days. An EF5 in Indiana, an EF4 in Oklahoma, an EF3 in Michigan. A geographic shift that no emergency management framework in the northern half of this country has been fully funded to address. And the calendar has one more thing to say. The peak of tornado season in the United States is not April. It is May and June. Weather. On this day, the EF4 in Enid was day 1 of 6 days that are not yet finished. May is day 7. The atmosphere is still loaded. And somewhere in central Illinois tonight, in a house with no shelter, in a county that has not seen an EF4 in living memory, in a state where the most tornado warnings of any year in modern record keeping are now being issued, the low-level jet is strengthening. The same way it strengthened the night before Enid, the same way it always does